Welcome to NEK-TV Rocks, and my guests today are...
Michael Croteau.
Randy McGonigal.
Yay, good Irish name.
Yes.
And I'm a Scot. And we're going to be talking about your sailing club. What's the actual name?
It's Newport Community Sailing Center.
It's a big name.
Yes, or NCSC for short.
That's more manageable. There's a lot of excitement about this. So tell us how this happened. I mean, what brings you here? You're not guys who've lived here all your lives.
Well, I certainly haven't. Michael was born here, but
haven't lived here my whole life.
Right.
But the impetus for starting the sailing center really came about 3 years ago. My wife and I were sailing long distances in our larger sailboat, sold that and decided to move up here. So in that first summer, which was 3 summers ago, we were riding our bikes around the lake, and we realized that the lake appeared to be underutilized. And
that was still COVID time.
No, it was just as it was closing down.
Right.
So it was 2022, I guess.
Yeah.
We've being sailors and looking at the lake and seeing how beautiful it was, we saw an opportunity there. And fortunately, my conversations with my wife, she was positive in pursuing this. She's started multiple nonprofits through the years. So for her, this was kind of a
challenge.
Well, it was something that she understood quite well on how to start a nonprofit. So that being said, we started looking into the town itself and seeing what opportunities there were through the city's management, if you will. And so we met Rick Uford Chase.
Yeah.
And Rick was very positive and thought it was a great idea. So that allowed us to start to pursue this in a more structured manner.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's not really from here, so he missed the history of this used to be a really active sailing area.
That's what we've been told, yes.
Yeah.
Michael,
Randy and I actually we both ski instruct at J Peak, and we were on the chairlift and talking about things. And I, in my mind, had thought about moved back here during COVID.
Yeah.
And I grew up here
Right.
and left. Most of my career was in New York City. But I was thinking about doing something on the lake that was kind of based on a more for-profit business kind of thing for sailing. I taught myself how to sail on the lake, and even back in the 70s, there wasn't a lot of activity on this lake. You'd be out there all alone. And on a borrowed little sailboat that some friends had, I taught myself how to sail. When I came back up here, it was like there's still no place to rent a paddleboard on the lake, to get on a sailboat, learn to sail as a kid. And both my kids went through, they call them yacht clubs, which sounds very elitist, but on the east end of Long Island, which is a very skinny piece of land with water everywhere, every little town has a yacht club. And one of them specializes in sunfishes. So it's really kids sailing programs is what they are. Another one specializes in optimists. And so I was looking at doing something like here that would be similar to what my kids were able to grow up with and learn to sail. Of course, they hated it half the time. It was like, I don't want to go sailing. Now they're like, why didn't I listen more? But anyway, so that's
much harder.
Yeah, so Randy and I started talking. He had the wheels in motion already, and I was thinking in my mind to do something. And we kind of combined forces after that chat on the chairlift.
Synchronicity.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and so, like Michael said, he was thinking for-profit.
Right.
We were thinking not-for-profit. I think, we landed on not-for-profit at this juncture. So we created a board last summer. We've been meeting on a regular basis. We've also folded in an organization called Adaptive Sports Partners.
Yes.
Which allows us to support people with disabilities.
That's a fabulous organization.
Yeah, they are. We work with them at the mountain.
Yeah.
So we're quite familiar with the staff, and we spend a lot of time with them during the winter. So it was a natural for us to partner with them to more broadly offer sailing opportunities to everyone across the board.
Yeah, Kelly was on this show a few weeks ago.
Yeah, Kelly is very dynamic.
She's
on board.
Yeah.
Of course.
So, yeah.
It's I think too with we call it a sailing center, but the like Randy was saying, the lake being underutilized. I now live on the lake too, and it's amazing. You look out the window and you seldom see, on the weekend, maybe a few more boats, more bass boats. I'm near Strawberry Acres, so we see bass boats going out,
Right.
but still, for a lake this size and for how beautiful it is, there really isn't a lot of use of the lake for the public, and I think a lot of it is just the cost of entry to be in the water for a boat, for a slip, for all of those things.
Absolutely.
And even paddleboarding. You know, if you don't have a place to store a paddleboard, you know, you got to put it on your car, you got to take off your car. We're also going to be offering that entry level stuff at $12 an hour to get a paddleboard rental
Pretty
to go
good.
out, and we
Yeah.
really kept our prices affordable. We're not for profit, as they say, but it doesn't mean we don't
You
want to
have
make
to
money.
eat.
Yeah, we have to. You know, we've
maintain.
got costs,
Yeah.
and we want. You know, we want to employ people in the summer and start out
Correct.
small. But what happens, I think, with the kids too is they run through the kids programs, and the ones that, you know, once they get up to the small kids boats are really designed for like 15 years old is kind of
Yes.
the top level, and it's a world-class boat that actually has a kids are ranked up to 15 years old in that vessel. But once kids are in high school, they can have their summer job at the sailing center. We hope to have it going enough so we can actually have kids that could be their paid summer job in the summer to come back to the camp or come back to teach other kids. And that's the model that I saw down on Long Island too. So, you know, those few things about empowering people to get on the water, make it affordable, and then have an avenue where employment can come out of it too for summer
Right.
jobs for kids. That's
And a
kind
real
of,
skill.
yeah,
A set of skills,
right.
actually.
And getting
Yeah.
people on the lake is really, like Randy's first view of the lake is, wow, this is really underutilized. So
I agree.
you know, being able to have people have more access to it was really the purpose of what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we went paddle boards as well and kayaks, so that you can get on the water at an entry level. And sailing, you know, it's a little more of an investment in time to learn how to become a proficient sailor, but we're also going to we have a bigger boat that adults can go out in, and you could, which will go out of the east side this year,
Right.
and you can go on a cruise, pay to go on a cruise, and you can learn to sail if you'd like to, learn some
Or
of the
not.
sailing with a captain, with the crew, or just sit there and, you know, have a glass of wine and get out on the lake on a sailboat on a
both.
nice night. Yeah,
Or both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So a lot of your program is going to be based in South Bay, the
Yes.
Gardner Park area, and part of it at the east side.
So we'll be splitting our time between those two sites. So the morning programs, which will be focused on kids up to 15, will be out of Gardner Park. So Wednesday through Friday, we'll have morning sessions till 1 o'clock in Gardner. And then the afternoon sessions will be in the east side. Now we are partnering with Mike Brown from Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be offering or working with him on Wednesday afternoons to bring his camp program in to learn to sail at Gardner. So we'll have those programs running during the week for kids, so the parents can drop their kids off and have an opportunity for the kids to learn to sail. And then the afternoons will be more focused on kayak, stand-up paddle boards, and then the larger boats out of east side. So we're kind of split our time. We expect the east side to be obviously more crowded and activity in the afternoons than it would be in the mornings. So,
Right.
so we'll be
and weekends.
and weekends we'll be there as well. So yeah, weekends, Saturday and Sunday are pretty much all day.
And you already have, obviously you're doing some of the instructing yourselves.
We are.
Yeah, I think the whole board will be doing some volunteer times, you know,
Yeah.
at different hours and different places.
The board itself are all sailors, and most of us, have been teaching skiing for quite some time. So
Right.
we've got a lot of experience with kids programs,
Right.
with developing programs, adjusting our abilities based on our students or athletes. So I think we've got a good staff, as well as the paid staff is a certified ski instructor, snowboard instructor as well, and quite proficient at teaching. So
Sure.
we think we've got a good basis for the ability to deliver quality programs to
Right.
kids as well as adults.
Yeah, and
So-
Kelly has already put out the shout for those who are interested in helping with the adaptive side of it.
Yeah, which my wife is supporting Kelly in their programs.
Cool, because there's a lot of us who have kayaked for decades who are interested in helping.
That'd be great. We could also use the help as well because we'll have kayaks
Sure.
as well as paddle boards. So
Yeah,
it's an opportunity to, bring into the fold a lot of the adults in this area as well, so that they can either get out on the water, like Wednesday evenings, and
Right.
Wednesdays on the waterfront.
That's
You
right.
could go out and paddle and listen to music.
We also have some really skilled paddleboarders here who have sort of flown under the radar because you don't see them, but some of them have been competitive in other states before they moved here.
Well, this is a great lake. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a huge body of water. So,
Exactly.
And they can
Exactly.
probably go out for miles and miles, hours,
Right,
and train.
and that's what many of us do with kayaks. So, and we kayak with swimmers too on the lake.
One of the other benefits of, I think, what we're doing compared to just renting a kayak, if you go to EMS in Burlington, you can rent a kayak for $40 or a paddleboard for $40, but you've got to load it on your car, take it somewhere,
Right.
and there's no instruction.
Right.
Here, if you rent a paddleboard, we're going to go through a little, 5-minute safety chat, and then
Here's how you stand up.
yeah, well, actually that too, because
No, it's real.
here's
We're knocking
here's
it.
what center line is on the board. Here's
Yeah.
where your feet go. Here's
You
fore
flip.
and aft where you want to be. The proper way to paddle.
And
Those
we all
are
have flipped.
right, and you will on a paddleboard too, quite
course.
possibly. But having a little instruction too to get you out on the water and make it efficient instead
Yeah.
of you fighting it or not
Yeah.
really knowing what to do. And it doesn't take. If you rent it for an hour, you can do that in 10 or 15 minutes of a little bit of instruction. It goes a long way, and then you have somebody that has a confidence on the
Right.
craft, and then they can come back and don't have to go through that again unless they want to, but they can come back and kind of
And just
rent it.
starting on a sort of controlled sized body of water initially before you can graduate to the main lake and head off to Quebec.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting for us too. One of the things we've talked about and we're putting together now is we're going to, much like you have a trail map when you go to
Yeah.
a ski area, is when you are at the east side, we're going to have a few routes mapped out for you, so we can look at the weather and say, hey, here's what's going to happen this afternoon if you're on the water. This is the calm side. You're not going to want to go past like the second mark on the bluffs. A longer route would be if it's a northwesterly, certainly.
You do know it changes within 10 minutes.
Oh yeah,
on the lake.
yeah.
Right. Well,
You have a pretty good idea though when if it's where it's coming from and when it changes. We've got a lot of sailing apps and a lot of wind apps, and
Yeah.
Light and variable doesn't usually mean light and variable all day long here.
Right.
So we're going to map out a few of those routes, so
Cool.
we can say like if you want a nice calm day, go around the bluffs and all the way over to Horseneck Island.
Right.
We'll know how long that takes for an average paddle. We're actually going to go out and paddle those things.
Cool.
Or if you want to go up the other side of the lake, to
Go around the lighthouse,
and back.
Make
or-
sure you back away from the lighthouse
Yeah.
so the birds don't
Yeah,
get you,
yeah,
because
yeah.
they will.
Yeah. And don't get downwind of the lighthouse because it smells a little fishy there with all those cormorants.
It's not so much that, it's the cormorants protect their nests,
Yeah.
so they will come at you,
oh,
particularly at night.
interesting.
Yeah, so mapping out that, and even if someone wants to get a little more adventuresome and go under the bridges,
Yeah.
there's a lot of paddling in the South Bay. It's
That's fun.
I
Yeah.
only used that part of the lake duck hunting growing up, but it's a lot of lakes. So having the instruction and having a little
Yeah.
roadmap of where to go and what to
It's
do if
really
you've never been on the
exciting.
lake.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it'll give people some idea of, timing, level of effort,
Yeah.
what they can do possibly within the period of time
Right.
there's allotted, the options that they've got. And so I think that would go a long way with, one, building confidence and also allowing them to make decisions
Yeah.
on their own.
Instead of just getting on a paddleboard and going
saying-
straight out.
Yeah.
Stay along the shore, these
Yeah.
nice sandy areas, it gets weedier over here.
The
wind-
sandbars over there.
Yeah, and the paddleboard is not much in play. I mean, you can drag a
Right,
fin
true.
on it, but it's
Yeah.
not like
And the kayak-
this is a great place to swim over here at this location, and give that kind of guidance too.
Yeah.
And kind of map out the whole bay as well.
Yeah,
For
that's
people to
good.
use.
That's really helpful for people living here too. It's not just those who are
Well,
coming in.
True, and that was our whole premise, it's to allow people that are residents, locals, if you will, of the Northeast Kingdom, to be able to come in and affordably get on a boat. They don't have to
Right.
buy one. If they only go out, most people only go out a couple times a year. So to go out and invest in a series of kayaks for the family may not be appropriate, right? Because if you use them twice a year, it's a big expense. You've got to store them. So we're trying to have the entry level very inexpensive to get in and be able to utilize the water. Of course, it's for visitors to the area as
course.
well. So the intention is, throughout all of Newport City's activities and CDD, they're trying to drive activity down to the waterfront and through the town itself. So we'll be there to accommodate the visitors, but a lot of it was really driven to get locals, kids especially, out on the water to experience it. And then hopefully become stewards
Right.
ultimately of understanding the activities around the lake, how it's affected by farming and et cetera and other things. And then we're also talking with, it's the new organization called MEMSEC,
Yes.
okay, the Memphragog Science Center. So John Aldridge is the director there.
He's coming on next week.
Oh, okay, so John and I have been having conversations quite a bit. Ultimately, we want to intertwine a lot of our kids programs with the MEMSEC programs, so we can get some, a little bit of the science and education involved in understanding the
Right.
lake and how it's utilized. And then, so that's unlikely this year, just because we're a startup. This is our
And so are
inaugural
they.
year, and they are as well.
Yeah.
So John and I have been talking. We're looking at the long-term utilization, and ultimately we want to have longer programs. Right now they're half-day programs for kids. We'd like to ultimately have full-day programs.
Yeah.
Again, probably not this year, but ultimately we want to do that. And then when we do that, we can fold in with MEMSEC much more easily.
That would be great.
It would be really good.
Yeah.
So.
I think that's part of what's happened in this process is working with kind of everybody in town instead of like us doing our own little thing over here and not really playing with any other organizations. Randy's done a really good job of getting other organizations involved and kind of being a big part of the community. I mean, we got a grant that was actually written and put together by a number of different
And
organizations.
partially funded.
Yeah, and
Right.
us being one of them.
Yes.
So we're looking at being more of a team player as opposed to just doing everything on our own.
Which is really smart because it's a small town.
Yeah, it doesn't always happen that way
And if you,
in
well,
Newport
it's
sometimes.
not just
too.
that,
Yeah.
but if you look at the makeup of all of the water-based organizations, you'll see the same players in all of them.
Right.
So why are we fragmenting
Exactly.
when we don't need to?
And that's what happened. NCDD brought 10 different organizations plus NCDD together. I think they're actually
I
called.
thought it was 12 because a couple of them were actually businesses.
There are two businesses,
Yes.
Phil's and the kayaking business, canoeing business. Phil White's,
Yeah.
the Northeast Kingdom Games. I could be wrong. I worked through the grant. I helped write that grant. So, but yeah. So there's, if nothing else, that activity of bringing us all together kind of cohesively joined many organizations
Yes.
with similar visions.
Yes.
And so we can collaborate and start to work together, like Michael said. The fact that we did get a grant. Of course,
Right.
we got less than we expected,
But
but
you
I
got
think
money.
that is always the case. You never get what you
No.
actually ask for. But we did quite well for our first outing, and I think ultimately it's going to help, Newport itself, but all these organizations to kind of gel together.
Right.
And then there's going to be a centralized website through NCDD, which I think now is called NDD.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, don't get me started.
Newport Downtown Development.
We still all call it Renaissance. I mean,
yeah, right. So
because you
it-
can't
it
ever
changes
change
name.
the way we think.
It changed, and I knew it as NCDD when
Right.
I moved here. So, but yeah, it's so
NCRC it was.
That's why we don't need another acronym. We'll just be the Community Sailing Center.
Yeah.
Exactly.
and I refer to it as a sailing center just
Yeah, please
because
keep
I'm lazy.
doing that. It's clear, it's easy.
But yeah, so I think ultimately we'll be able to collaborate together, and all of those organizations that participated in the VOREC grant, the Vermont Outdoor Recreation
Yes.
Grant,
Yeah.
will be linked through the primary website,
Right.
Discover Newport. And then that will be able to link out to all of our individual websites. So if you want to come in and visit Newport and you say, oh, I want to fish, or I want to sail, or I want to kayak, I want to swim, you can go through the Discover Newport and then be launched to the appropriate
Right.
website.
And there are other groups in town that you have not connected with yet who teach swimming and things like that, because the groups that you've just mentioned don't teach swimming.
Right, correct.
And when I first moved up here 16, 17 years ago, I was shocked at how few people swim. I mean, I grew up on an island. I grew up surrounded by rivers. We all learned to swim. We didn't have to like it, but we had to swim.
Yeah, that's one thing growing up here as at Prouty Beach, they did have swimming lessons, and we used to go
They
there.
haven't done for quite a long
Yeah.
time. And there still have been all the myths about Prouty Beach and how you're going to catch cooties if you go there. So the kids didn't go in the water. So few were learning to swim.
So, I mean, we had there was always an active lifeguard there. It was kind of the hub of summer activities for
Yeah.
kids in town. Ride your bike down there.
Yeah.
And there were always 2 rafts out there, you know, people throwing each other off
things have
rafts.
changed.
And, yeah, diving down and coming up with,
Yeah.
you know, a handful of mud to prove you went to the bottom. You know, that was
Exactly.
Proudney Beach back then. But I think for, you know, for us, we're putting people on top of the water as opposed to in the water. You know, I did triathlons, and I had a swim coach, and I learned to swim better because there's
Right.
swimming. You know, you're just keeping yourself afloat. Then there's swimming well, swimming efficiently.
Trust me, I know the difference.
Yeah, and there's an art to that. So I think that's great if there's that availability around here too.
There is. There is, and it's worth connecting with them.
Yeah,
They can
absolutely.
Give you the
So,
information.
so a big part of this is try to be part of the community. I think that's why the community is in the sailing center
Yeah.
title. You know, for good and bad, there's another Newport that is a very prominent sailing town, Newport, Rhode Island.
Oh, I think
So
I've
us
heard of
being
it.
us being Newport Community Sailing Center. If you we've got our website up now, and if you
I've been
if
to
you
your website.
yeah if you search Newport sailing or Newport Vermont sailing, you're going to go to our site. It's been we're slowly optimizing it so that you geographically you'll find
Yeah.
it here instead of Newport, Rhode Island. But as far as our programs, you were talking about information and the other websites that
Yes.
are around. We're going to publish our programs. My goal is to get them up there by June 1st because we're going to be launching later in June this year. Really, this year is going to be like a soft launch later in June, and then in July, August September will
You'll
be
be
our
full,
big. Yeah, that
active.
will be our really marketing it and really pushing it and really kind of getting we've got to do all the things in a year 1 that you don't have to do year 2. We got
Right.
getting our boats, getting our paddle boards, getting our equipment, getting our locations, getting a POS system, getting another phone number. I mean, getting the
It's a
website
lot.
going. Yeah,
It
it's like
really
starting a
is a
business.
lot.
So
Building all our programs.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's tons.
yeah. So we're pushing all that
Yeah.
stuff forward and have been for a year now. And but I think it's, I don't want to, over announce things or
Overpromise.
overpromise. But I think
Right.
we're going to really try to go at a pace that's solid and sustainable this year, and that's kind of our
If
goal.
from the end of June to Labor Day, you can provide sailing, kayaking, maybe canoeing, water events in that way, and you're consistent,
Yeah.
Yes.
you will have the hordes.
And I think we see the summer being the reason we didn't do any kids things on weekends is I think parents have to find places to put the kids during the week. They have them back on the weekend, I guess, if they're working a 9-to-5 job. And then I think too, the fall is so nice here too, so it won't be as kid oriented because kids are back in school. But in my mind, I see the bigger boat being more active or as active in September.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful month, and the weather seems to be warmer and warmer now. October starts
September
changing.
up here
Yeah.
is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just gorgeous.
So getting back to scheduling programs and timing, that information will be available on our website by the end of or 1st of June.
Does rowing feature in any of your long-term plans? Obviously not immediately.
I love that as a sport. When we first started with the board members, everybody was throwing out all sorts of ideas about what we were going to do, and I think we've got to kind of narrow it down
Sure.
and do what we do well.
Yes.
Maybe
Stay in your lane.
Yeah, I mean, this is a
Yeah.
great lake to row on. And the
I
last
know,
few,
I'm a rower.
Yeah.
We really, as a board, have been very conservative about what we want to offer because we want to do it successfully. We don't want to have 20 different things that we do poorly. So right now, we're controlled about what we're offering, and as we see opportunities and interest drives those opportunities, we'll as a board make decisions about what we may offer
What
in the
next?
future.
Yeah.
Dragon boats were really popular in the Chesapeake. So we saw a lot of activity in the Chesapeake of dragon boats.
Yeah.
There in Burlington too. They've got a big
Yeah,
feature there.
Burlington's as close to here as
Yeah.
there are not dragon boats here.
And
It's
a lot
been
of
talked about.
there was a lot of sculling down in Pennsylvania
Right.
where we also lived down on the Schuylkill River.
Yeah, I lived in Philly.
Oh, did you? Okay, so you
For
were
a
down by
long time, right.
Boathouse Row. That's
Of
a
course.
huge
I know it
area.
well.
Yeah, that's the Dadvale Regattas.
I lived in Mount Airy, so
That's where our son lives.
Yeah.
Interesting. So yeah, we still maintain a residence in Pennsylvania. So we're just outside of Philadelphia. So we're there part of the year and part of the year here. Most of the year here, actually. But yes, would that be an opportunity? I think if we saw the drive and there was enough interest. But at this point, we have to look for opportunities that will
Right.
sustain our business.
and there
So-
may also be groups for whom dragon boats are a specific interest. I mean, that's very often breast cancer survivors who
Right.
are really motivated.
Somebody
there.
will be watching this and say, wow, we can start the Newport Rowing Club now and we won't have to do it.
Right. Well, yeah,
Perfect
why
idea.
not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Or, a very good opportunity is we could host either sculling races or dragon boat races here because this lake is perfectly suited
Fabulous.
for that. Right?
Yes. It's a little
so-
more challenging for sculling because it gets really wild.
Yeah, yeah.
To get out, it's like everywhere. Get out early in the morning when it's calm, or in the evening when it calms down. The water ski times when it's glassy, and but you pick your shore, and
Yes,
you
absolutely.
You don't want to be over on off the bluffs when northwesterly kicks
This
up.
is true.
Yeah.
I live over there.
Our side of the lake, or my side of the lake, across from you,
Yeah.
tends to be a little calmer, a
It
little more
does.
wind shadow over there at
Yeah.
times. And I think the nice thing about Newport too is we have that kind of natural amphitheater bay
Mm-hmm.
there, and it's going to be really cool with the kids' boats. When Randy first started talking about sailing in that little bay, I was like, really? Is that even going to be, the wind going to be squirrely? Is it going to be strange? And and then looking at it
No,
a little
it'd be
more,
great.
we actually likened it to when you go skiing and you start on the magic
bunny
carpet
slopes,
and the
yeah.
bunny, they call it the bunny slope. We call
Right.
it, there's the TBL terrain, which is terrain-based learning. So you actually go to an area.
Bunny is much easier.
Yeah. Well, they actually have features, and they because of snowmaking now, they
Yeah.
can sculpt the snow
Sure.
into these bank turns that, think about it, you actually glide down and you don't need to worry about
Turn.
making the turn. The bank kind of stops you and it slows you down and it kind of gets you down the hill in
That's
a
nice.
way. And for sailing, the big lake can be pretty daunting, and
Yes.
it can, with a southwesterly, if you haven't learned to turn a boat around or whatever, you can just be blown down the lake.
Yes.
And that little pocket right there, between the two bridges and we call it Prouty Grain Bay, because it's not really South Bay,
Yeah,
but
right.
that Gardner Park Bay is perfect. It's like our bunny slope for kids to learn.
No, I think it's ideal.
And we've got the boats that we have for the kids it's a world-class training boat. It's kind of the training boat for launching a huge number of sailing careers. It's called an Optimus, and we have the same. It's a pram. It's a very square box of a little boat, but they're cute as hell. They've got little square sails, and to have we're getting 16 of them, and I don't know if all 16 will be in the water this year. We might have some that we need parts from, but timing-wise, they happen to be another guy that works worked this
You
year at
guys have
J.
made a massive investment here.
Well, they donated those boats to us.
Wow.
So yeah, we've been very active. Michael's been very active. We've all been very active as a board to try to go out and elicit what we can as inexpensively as we can. Grants are not always that easy to come
No,
by,
they're not.
especially when you don't have any track record.
And
Right
you have
now-
to spend the money ahead of getting the money too. So the grant we've got to pay it out, and then
Right.
we have to follow specific areas of when that money can come back and how it comes back. So it's a lot of work. So we've gotten. I've been working on the fleet probably for the better part of a year, and just talking to people in the sailing business. I remember asking the man Jonathan Farrar, whose kids I coach him on the free ride team up at J. And met him, and he's the Northeastern sailing coach, Northeastern University. And I talked to him about what they did with it's a boat called the 420 that they race. I said, what do you do with the 420s once they're done and you're not being used? And they auction them off or they sell them, and the boats are in great performance shape. So he's
Sure.
like, that's not in play. But then he called me and said, hey, he goes, we are replacing the whole kids fleet on Fisher's Island Yacht Club, and it's they have all of these prams. And he said, I've got to move them somewhere. Do you want them for Newport? So we were like, yes. And so that timing was pretty fortuitous at that point.
That's great.
Yeah. So that'll be the kids' boat, and those will be in that Gardner Bay. But, I can see in my mind 10 little, 12 little boats with
Yeah.
white sails flitting around like butterflies in that
Be
little bay
wonderful.
is going to be really
So
cool
the
for
stars
Newport.
are all lining up here, and
Yeah,
the planets
they
with.
are.
A little at a time, slowly, and
Yeah.
it's been a year of work to get to where we are now, and it's
And
exciting.
in our last few minutes, what would be helpful to you from Newport? I mean, this is going to be something that residents are excited about. It's got lots of opportunities.
I'd say first thing right now,
Yeah.
we have a GoFundMe going, is go throw $25
GoFundMe.
at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you can actually click a link on our website
Yes.
that goes directly to a donation.
Okay.
But the GoFundMe is going to be up for a little while longer, and you know, if we've got 1,000 people putting $25 in there, or $20, or $10.
Every little helps.
You know,
It would-
and
it
kind
would
of
be huge.
grassroots, I would say right now is really help us. We're all putting our money into it.
Sure.
Randy and I have bought the bigger boat that we've got, and you know, at some point may get reimbursed from the group. But I'm going down, you know, and getting all of the kids' boats back up here and taking the ferry to Fisher's Island, which is expensive, and taking a U-Haul truck down there to put them together, and
Yeah.
you know, staying overnight. And then we're getting sailing certifications that we're all paying for. So we put a lot of
Right.
money into this. We're just asking, like, the GoFundMe part of it is to ask other people that are excited about this in the community to
Sure.
help us raise some funds, and primarily to be able to utilize this grant. You know, get that extra money in there too. So I would say that would be number one. And then number two is really look at our website, look at the programs, and use, you know, get on a paddleboard, get on a kayak, go sail with us. You know, and even if you you know, if you've got kids, look at a possibility of them. We're going to make it very easy to just grab it kind of a la carte. It's not
Sure.
like you've got to go take a 4-week program with your kids. You can, you know, look at the programs and sign up for day by day by day. So
Right.
after June 1. The programs will be online.
Cool.
Soon after that, we'll have a reservations online kind of thing that you can book, and a
And
active
if you
person.
have some kayaking or sailing experience and you want to help with the adaptive program,
Or even with our
contact
program.
or with your program.
Yeah. I would say also another additional piece in there is I'm working closely with Elizabeth Chambers, who's the Encore program for the
Yep.
local school districts. I would ask the parents to open their minds and think about allowing their children to come in and learn to sail or paddle, and give them that opportunity. We're driving the costs down as low as we can.
Right.
Allow your kids to experience something that, you know, we're giving that opportunity out there as best we can, as cheaply as we can. So, you know, open your mind, allow your kids to come in. Perhaps it'll change their lives. You know, it might change 1 or 2 kids' lives. So we're hoping that, you know, our programs will drive change. And hopefully some kids will become excited and move on.
I would bet they would. I mean,
I hope
once,
so.
once somebody gains some confidence on and in the water, it's life-changing.
It is, it can
It
be.
really is.
Yeah.
I mean, if you learn to sail too, you can. I've been on boats all over the world, and
Right.
not my boat, but someone else's boats,
somebody
because
else's,
you know,
right.
some of mine, but it's a skill. Even if you don't. Once you start sailing, I think you're a sailor for life, even if you're not sailing. But the kids are going to learn how to tie knots. I mean, six basic knots that come in handy for everything when you're, you know, tying your ATV down to a trailer. You know, I mean,
We all had to learn those when we were kids,
Yeah,
whether
yeah.
we sailed or not.
I think they're skills, they're life skills. It's a whole new language too.
Right.
There are hundreds of terms in sailing that are used on every boat, not just
Right.
sailboats, that allow you to be a better person around the water. So you know what
Right.
a boat does,
And
and
you
then
know-
weather and water and all of those elements that are, if you're hunting or fishing, you need
Right.
to. Those are skills that
Navigation,
Yeah,
you know.
navigation on the
Navigation's
water, yeah.
important, and you learn how to work cooperatively
Yep.
because you rely on each other. You're in
Exactly.
big trouble if you
Yeah.
don't.
So they're all great lessons for
Yeah.
kids, and
Yep.
and it's fun. You know, it's fun to get on the water.
Well, we're just about out of time. As I say, it goes fast. I love this program, this
you.
idea. I'm a water person, but I had the privilege of growing up near water, surrounded by water, as did you, and learned skills really early. And I can't imagine living by this gorgeous lake and not having a way of accessing it. And you're changing that.
Actually,
We're
I
trying to
didn't.
help
I
that,
didn't
yeah.
grow up in the water.
You didn't?
No, I bought a boat when I was 30. I bought a boat, a sailboat, and a book.
He bought a big sailboat too. He didn't start small.
Bought a 27-foot sailboat and a book, and learned to sail.
And you didn't swim before that either?
Oh no, I swam competitively when I was young.
Well then.
But I mean, that didn't help me with
Yeah.
sailing. It just made me comfortable in the water. But so you can start at any time. I just had a
That's
dream,
true.
and I wanted to learn how to sail. So I boued a boat and a book.
And
So-
that's
And the rest is history.
Right.
And look where you are now.
Yep.
Not just following the Grateful Dead.
well, that's another one thing in our plans too. Is that
I
the
don't.
bigger boat that we have is a 22-foot Hunter right now,
Yeah.
and people that have come down and gone through our program and show some proficiency
Yeah.
with sailing, we're going to have that boat for rent. I don't know how much we'll do this year.
Yeah.
It's a matter of insurance and everything else. And
In the
then
future.
quite possibly get some, we're looking at kind of 19-foot O'Days. They're a little
Right.
older, but an easy boat to sail and be able to come down and take a sailboat yourself out too would be
Right.
part of
Okay.
our plan. That would be the next level of what we're doing.
Perfect.
As well.
And what I'd also like to do is come down and with a camera someday.
that'd be great.
Now that has to be figured out because of kids and consent and other stuff like that. But I bet there's ways we can do that.
Well, our full launch is going to be July 27th to coincide with the Men for Magog
Sure.
Festival. So that would be probably a really good time if we can talk about that.
Sure.
Our soft launch is June 15th, but
Right. We'll figure something out.
Yeah.
So thank
We'll
you
be around.
both for coming in, and
Thank you,
we'll
Pam.
do this again.
excellent.
Okay.
Love
See
to.
you on the water.
Thank you.